Hello friends, we are witnessing a grand and instructive drama behind which of course lies a harsh economic calculation. It's June 2026 and in the corridors of Brussels conversations are getting louder that after March 2027 the free ride for newly arrived Ukrainian men of conscription age will officially come to an end. The temporary protection mechanism, launched at the peak of solidarity, is something Europe plans to carefully switch off, that is, to dismantle. Let's discuss everything now. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Huge thanks to everyone who takes 2 seconds for these simple actions. Thank you for your support. Now let's get down to business. The trend is obvious. The capitalist world has grown weary of the millions of migrants. Yes, those who have already managed to get their coveted cards, their rights on paper, will of course keep them. But as we can see, for the rest, the warning bell has rung loud and clear. Hundreds of thousands of men will face a reasonable question: where to go when Schengen border guards start turning people back at the border? Outside the European Union, there are many places where you can legally settle. When preparing this material, I dug into it with real interest myself. Wow! But here you need to understand the main economic reality. There won't be any social assistance, free apartments, or startup money there. Because this list of countries is suitable only for those who have a steady online income or are bringing a solid amount of savings with them, not just thinking, we'll figure it out on the spot. Life there is cheaper, but you'll have to rely strictly on your own resources. Let's probably get started. Part 1. The near frontier. Post-Soviet transit and security service filters. Let's start with geographically close Moldova. Right now, it's one of the most popular destinations, and actually Chisinau doesn't impose any restrictions for those subject to military service at the border. The temporary protection program here has been extended until March 1, 2027, but there is no longer automatic renewal of documents. You need to submit an online application. This was done pragmatically, filtering out those who obtained the status but then left for the European Union. There are some disadvantages in Moldova. The local labor market is tiny, and average salaries are among the lowest on the continent. Housing prices in Chisinau have skyrocketed, and winter utility bills are breaking records. Moreover, the government has put strict filters in place. Every application is meticulously checked for 2 weeks by the Local Information and Security Service, abbreviated as SIS. And if any questions arise, well, there will be a detailed conversation with you. If you apply for a standard residence permit for business or work, you'll need a certificate of no criminal record, which, as I understand, is given to men at the consulate only if their military registration documents are in order. In this regard, sunny Georgia looks much more lenient. By the way, I have been to Georgia. It's cool there. It has its drawbacks, but it also has its advantages. So the country isn't really a paradox, it's more of a riddle. In Georgia, military status doesn't matter, and border officials don't check obligations. Ukrainians can stay visa-free for 1 year, given the unique circumstances. When the period comes to an end, it's enough to leave for just 1 day to neighboring Turkey or sunny Armenia, come back and get a new stamp for another 365 days. For remote workers, this is a great option. You can register a small business and pay tax on your income. How much do you think the tax rate is? 1. That's quite a good number. By the way, I actually have some friends there. Belarusians. I lived in Batumi. Computer guys. However, local employment since 2026 requires an official work permit. And the State Security Service of Georgia, SSG, reserves the right to turn back any suspicious foreigner at the border. So next we have Central Asia Part 2. Digitization and strict control there. Yes, things aren't that simple there. Let's just look at Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. There are no humanitarian programs here. Play by the general rules, dear friends. The visa-free regime in Kazakhstan allows you to stay in the country for 90 days within half a year. And the visa run option, it doesn't work here. The system counts every day, just like in Schengen in the European Union. To stay long-term, you need to get a temporary residence permit through an official contract with a local company or by registering a business in a special zone like Astana Hub. It's not that simple. In Uzbekistan, the situation is similar but has its own details. Registration is strictly controlled. When renting an apartment, landlords must register you through the government services portal within 3 days after leaving. Keep the QR code slip or risk a large fine from border guards. Life in Tashkent is affordable, the internet is fast, but your activity will be monitored not only by the State Security Service, but also by the Mahala Institute, the local neighborhood committee. So it's kind of like a civilian patrol. The local police officer, together with the head of the Mahala, has every right to come to your rented apartment for an inspection. That's why you can't register unofficially. Everything must be strictly official. Next we have part 3, the sunny Balkans, the Balkan route. Albania, I've been there, it's pretty cool. It has its own advantages, but also many disadvantages. In Albania, Ukrainians can stay with a biometric passport without any visa bureaucracy until March 30, 2027. This is essentially long-term tourist status. But Albania is actively copying Brussels' migration deadlines, because Albania wants to join the EU. If in 2027 the EU closes the program, the authorities in Tirana will do the same for men. Renting housing by the sea is cheap here, especially if you do all this somewhere in October or even in November. But without knowing the language, you won't find a job in the local market. Montenegro. The protection also applies until March 2027, giving the right to work. But to switch to a standard residence permit, you need to buy property or open a company. You will again need a police clearance certificate from the Ukrainian consulate. Serbia. Serbia is not very enthusiastic about temporary protection, considering applications for months. That's why migrants enter as tourists. Every 3 months they do a visa run to Bosnia. Or they immediately register the local equivalent of a sole proprietorship. When you start a company in Serbia, you immediately get a 3-year residence permit and a direct route to permanent residency, usually without needing a criminal record certificate. That's sunny Serbia. Next. Part 4, the wealthy West. The doors are pretty much shut here, because in the prosperous Western countries that are not part of the EU, they've really tightened the screws. Norway has officially denied automatic protection to men aged 18 to 60. Their cases are considered under the general asylum procedure, where the chances of approval are minimal. Moreover, Oslo has declared half of Ukraine's regions to be safe areas, and people coming from, for example, Lviv or Chernivtsi will be denied automatic protection. Switzerland has introduced a similar geographic filter for its S status, denying residents of Western regions repeated protection after other countries. Bern does not provide EU status in principle. United Kingdom. Great friends of the Ukrainian people. They have closed family legalization schemes. Only the Home for Ukraine program is in effect. But the visa period has been reduced to 1.5 years, and only a UK citizen or a person with permanent residency can be a sponsor. Work visas are available, but they require a huge official salary from an employer with a license. Another group of great friends of Ukraine, the sunny ones. What do you mean by sunny? The United States. Things aren't any better across the ocean. In the US, the Uniting for Ukraine program is completely closed to new applicants. Completely. Attempts to storm the Mexican border through the CBP app, CBP1 for short, are also a thing of the past. Canada shut down its program even earlier. And Turkey is massively denying foreigners tourist visas to Turkey. In Japan, it's still possible to get status. But a major foundation, the Nippon Foundation, has closed its project and no longer pays for plane tickets or relocation allowances. Well, that's how it is. That's the catch. Next, friends, we have part 5, distant shores, Argentina and Asia. Against this background, Argentina really stands out here. It's a particularly attractive option. The humanitarian protection program here continues to operate. Statuses are granted free of charge immediately for 3 years, with the right to work, study, and later obtain full citizenship. It's difficult to find a local job there without knowing Spanish. There are no benefits. But this status is guaranteed not to be revoked by a call from some European capital. This is the perfect option for those who work remotely on a computer and receive their salary in dollars. Next, for those who love exotic places, there's still Thailand and Vietnam. There's no such thing as a refugee there. Refugee? What are you talking about? In Thailand, freelancers can get a visa for 5 years by showing about $15,000 in their account. Well, that's not much, really. In Vietnam, you can live on 90-day electronic visas, but the local police are now cracking down hard on perpetual tourists, demanding official employment. So, friends, that's the situation in the main countries. What conclusion can we draw? The capitalist world states it directly and ambiguously. Friends, the era of unconditional hospitality and benefits, what kind and when, is over. And if they were for Ukrainian men, all of this is coming to an end. Borders are closing, security screening is getting tighter, and government structures are turning into instruments of control. Want to keep your freedom of movement? Well, buddy, you better rely on your own strength. Monetize your skills remotely or learn the local language. Basically, be ready to fly to the other side of the planet. You can't cheat the laws of economics and geopolitics. That's how things are, my friends, so keep that in mind. And I don't want to scare anyone. I'm just saying that you need to have a backup plan, a plan B. Friends, that's the kind of video this turned out to be. I hope you found it interesting. If you watched until this point, leave a comment. Dennis made it to the end from Buenos Aires, from Montevideo. Where are you watching from? I love geography. I'll like every city you mention. Alright, that's all for now. Let me remind you that TransferGo is the best money transfer service. The link is in the description. Send money to your family and loved ones in Ukraine. Register if you have someone to support. Take care of yourself and loved ones. See you next time.